I'm Kevin Carden with the Photo Mentorship. Welcome to Photoshop AI. Well, hey everybody, my name is Kevin Carden. I am a photographer and digital artist, and welcome to this short course about artificial intelligence. I am really excited about this course. Artificial intelligence is something that I have personally studied and researched and used a lot the last couple years. So AI has been very helpful, for me as a photographer, as an artist, as someone who's recording videos, because you see this around me right now. This stuff is not real. I am sitting in a room with just a black sheet behind me. I'll show you. That's where I'm standing at right now. I'm not in this background. So even AI was able to help me do this. Let me go and bring it back in. All right, that's much better. So using AI, in everything, in our videos, in our backgrounds, in our artwork, it is something that is really cool to use. It certainly is a tool that is everywhere. Everywhere that we look, and we can either embrace it or we can ignore it, but it's there if you want to learn more about it. And I was excited when David and Rich asked me to film this short little video about AI when it comes to artwork, because that's one of my passions as well. I'm an artist, I'm a photographer. I love to do that stuff, and so to be able to talk about both of these, it's an excitement to me, and hopefully that you'll be encouraged by this video. You're going to learn about some new tools in Photoshop. You're going to learn more about what AI is and what it's not, and how to use this in your creative process and to make some really cool pictures. That's really my main goal with this video. Is I want you to take what you are already good at, photography or editing, and then be able to bring a brand new technology into that and to be able to do something amazing. So hopefully in this video, you'll be able to learn something new and take those little tools into your own practice as a photographer. Now, like I said, AI is everywhere. It is something that has just encompassed the entire world, especially like in the last couple years, 2022, 2023, those were banner years for AI. And I do think that in the future, it's going to continue to grow even more so. And so we see it everywhere. You've probably heard of programs like ChatGPT or Bard or Claude or Midjourney or Dolly. You've probably heard of those programs before, even if you've never used them. They are, pretty much everywhere. We think about, if you use your phone with Siri or Alexa or Google, we see all of those integrated into our daily lives. And I think that's not going to change. I think as we go each year, we're going to see AI have a larger and larger influence on our day-to-day activities. So you can, have the mindset that I don't want to dabble with AI. I don't want to mess with it. I'm just do my own thing. But the reality is that AI is going to be used in the field of photography and artistry as well. And so you really have to think about, am I going to use this tool? Am I not going to use this tool? That is a personal decision that I had to make a couple years ago, or earlier this year, rather. I had to make the decision, what is I going to do as an artist? If you followed me as a photographer or artist, you've noticed that I use a lot of Photoshop in my creations. And I've taught a lot of classes on using Photoshop to create composites. So I'll combine multiple images together. I'll use my own photography. I'll do some painting. I'll do all kinds of different things in Photoshop to create a final picture. And I love doing that. But I've done it my whole life, essentially without AI. And so now AI is coming onto the scene. Am I going to use that? Am I going to be a purist? Am I only going to do the compositing, the photography that I've been doing, or am I going to expand what I do going forward? And so I made the decision. It's not that you have to make this decision, but I made the decision to embrace AI as a new type of technology, a new way to help me create new pieces of artwork, to be able to streamline my process. There's a lot of things that AI can do easily that I cannot do as an artist. And so that's really helpful to use that in my toolbox. So if we think about, if we go back many years ago, before like cameras were invented, and before cameras and photography was even around, people had to use paint to create pictures. If they wanted to see a picture of the mountains or the landscape or a sunrise or even like portraits, they had to get out their paints and they had to paint something on a canvas. And that was, a lot of people were able to do that. And then photography came along, and then people could just use a machine, a camera, to take a picture of that same mountain scene or that same sunrise or that same family portrait. And all the people who had been painting were kind of upset with that, because now all of these new artists were using a camera to do something they have been doing by hand. And so there was a little bit of controversy with, painting versus using a camera. And then fast forward like 100 years later, and then Photoshop's invented. And then now you can take Photoshop and you can edit your pictures. You can brighten them up. You can rotate them. You can get that horizon line perfectly even, like you should in all landscape photography. You can adjust the colors. You can adjust the white balance. You can do all kinds of stuff in Photoshop with your photography. And so when Photoshop came around, you had a lot of purist photographers who were upset. They said, no, you've got to take your picture with the camera. You get the settings right. You get the white balance right. You get everything right in the camera, and you don't edit the photo. This is what we call photography purist. And so they don't like Photoshop at all. And so Photoshop didn't really care about the purists. They kept on going and kept on creating new and new tools. And now we see, 25 years later, after Photoshop was created, we see this, invention of AI. And so we do have a little bit of pushback as well. People who are traditional artists or who are photographers or who are compositors in Photoshop like I am. And you see a lot of other people like this would say, no, we're not going to use AI. You've got to do it the old-fashioned way, like in Photoshop. And so we're going to see this continuous theme of new technology comes in, and there's always going to be people who are hesitant to learn this new technology, to use this new technology. AI is nothing different. You're going to have a lot of people who say, I don't want to touch it. I don't want to mess with it. I'm just going to do things the way I've always done it. So if you're in that boat, this video is probably not for you. I think that is something that we can embrace. It's something that we can look for the positives in, and that we can make even more, amazing artwork and amazing photographs when we use AI as a part of our toolbox. So what I'm going to do in this video is I'm going to be showing you how to use artificial intelligence, especially when it comes to Photoshop. We're going to be talking about tools like Generative Expand, Generative Fill, and I'm going to show you different ways to use those. I'm going to show you some things you probably should not use them for. There are some limitations for them, but I'll show you some of the best ways that you can use these tools, and that'll be helpful in your own photography. I'll show you some examples of how I've used it and how it's been helpful to me. And hopefully by watching this video, you're going to be able to get excited about AI. You're going to go into Photoshop and play around with it and see what you can do, even if they're old photos. If you took a photo like 10 years ago or 5 years ago, and you can still use these new tools on your old photographs and really bring them to life and do some really cool stuff with it. So I'm excited about this video. I'm excited to talk about AI, and we're going to jump in and really get our feet wet when it comes to AI in Photoshop.